Welcome back to another monthly meal prep. We got a great one this time. This recipe is ultra budget and packs in the flavor. Today and tomorrow, we're gonna be cooking chicken rice soup. Think chicken noodle soup, but take out the noodles, add some wild rice in there, homemade stock. It's incredible. I'm making this recipe for under $15 and I'm getting 5 meals out of this. So let's get into it. All right, we're gonna start with the chicken here. We just need to break down this chicken, and you can do this any way you like, but if you know me, I love deboning my chicken. So I'm just gonna go through that process here. And if you don't know how to do this, I have videos up, I have a blog written, and it's really not that hard. And the best part about breaking down a chicken for this recipe is you don't have to worry about leaving behind too much meat because you're gonna make stock with it, so nothing is truly gonna go to waste. That being said, I would rather eat the meat than make it into stock, so I'm still trying to keep as much behind as I can. Easy peasy. Now that we got the carcass off, that's gonna go on my tray for roasting, and we got a few decisions to make. We don't need to keep the wings here. We can keep those separate. I love chicken wings, so I'm gonna save these, have a little snack. And since I'm doing that, I'm gonna take the wing tips off and leave those in the stock. Just a little extra flavor, a little more bones, a little more collagen. But if you don't like wings, you can just toss them fully into the stock. Any little bits of meat that you cut off, toss them into the stock. For this recipe specifically, I'm actually gonna take the skin off of all the meat because I don't want it in the soup later. To do this, just pull the meat off. It's usually pretty easy. It just comes right off. And anywhere that's just a little stuck, gently use your knife to just break between the membranes. That's it. All you gotta do. Right here, cut right through, done. There are your boneless, skinless breasts. Same thing for the legs here. Lots of times you can just pull the skin completely off. Easy as that. Now all this skin is gonna go on this rack and it's gonna roast down and we're gonna add that to the stock. Added bonus to these legs is to debone them so that the bones can go in the stock and it makes them easier to slice. That being said, another nice thing about this recipe is all this meat is gonna get chopped up when it goes into the soup, so you don't need to worry about your cuts being beautiful. Any of the leftover meat is going into stock, it's not being wasted. Any bad cuts are gonna be hidden by the fact that we're chopping up this meat in. So zero risk, doesn't matter that I left a little on there, easy peasy. To debone these, it's simple. You just come down the length of the thigh bone here and then cut either side and just work your knife around the bone until it's fully clean off the meat. And that's your thigh bone. For the leg bone, you come down and same thing. Follow the bone, cut through the meat, and you're just trying to get nice and close to the bone here, cut to either side. And then on the legs, I like to come underneath and then at some point just cut through because all this is just tendon. You don't want that. And then come down. There is a little shin bone in here. If you catch that, just go around it and then just work your knife around the meat here. There's no wrong ways to do this. Just go slow and remember, practice makes perfect. Or in this case, passable. I'm just gonna give this meat a quick chop because the final product is gonna be bite-sized chunks and I already have a dirty cutting board and I don't wanna dirty another one tomorrow. So I'm gonna do it now, just quick little bite-sized chunks. And then we can throw this all in a bag into the fridge. And now that all this has been cut up, we can put it in a bag into the fridge and we'll use it again tomorrow. All right, the last thing we're gonna do to this chicken is just give it a nice coat of olive oil. Don't worry about measuring any of these quantities. This oil will all be skimmed off from the stock. Now this is ready to go in a 400-degree-Fahrenheit oven until it is a deep golden brown. Now for some quick knife work. For the onions, I keep it super simple and just give them the most rough chop I can. The appearance and exact breakdown of any of these is not important as we are gonna be straining off all the solids from the stock. We're just helping it break down just a little bit. For the celery, just give it a nice coarse chop, making sure you wash off the dirt between the layers. For the carrots, I'm not peeling the skins, just giving them a good rinse under cold water. And a whole head of garlic. Now in your stock pot, go in with a healthy amount of olive oil. Again, we're gonna skim all this fat off, so don't worry about it. This is just gonna make a ton of flavor in the base of this pot. And once it's warm, go in with your veggies and just make sure to stir occasionally so nothing burns. Once you've got some good color in the bottom of the pot, cover with water and bring to a boil. And toss in your roasted chicken carcass. Add in a bunch of parsley and a few whole black peppercorns. Make sure everything is covered in water and let simmer overnight. Alrighty, it's the next day. Your stock should look something like this, very reduced. All the stuff in there is very cooked down, and now it's time to strain it off. So there's no one right way to do this, but this is what I like to do. I like to take a chinois, it's a fine mesh strainer, it's cone shaped, put it over a Tupperware. This is where I'm probably gonna end up putting all my meals once they're done anyways, so I don't mind if there's a little residue. And since it's just this big, I'm just going straight through the chinois. If this was a really big batch, I'd go in steps, and the chinois would be the second to last step if I chose to go through cheesecloth. But today, this will be good on its own. So I'm just coming in, and it's a super simple, pour it over top. If you don't have a chinois, that's okay, it's not required. Just make do with what you got. Find a way to strain it, get off as much of the solids as you can. I don't feel the need to press too hard into this to push out all the liquid. This has been going for over 20 hours, so just the drip off the top will be enough. Once this stops dripping, I'm gonna toss all the solids in the trash. They've done their part. Last thing we're gonna do with this is skim off the fat. So as you can see, there's a nice layer of fat on top, and I don't want that in my stock. I wanna take that out. The best way to do this would be to cool down this whole thing in the fridge, preferably overnight, and then skim off the fat. It'll solidify, it's super easy. I don't got that time today, so my second best option is I'm going to take as much of the fat out with as little of the liquid into this container, and then I'm gonna throw this into the freezer. And by the time I'm done with this, I'm gonna be able to pull that out of the freezer. The fat will be solid, and I'll be able to pull all the fat out, and if there's any liquid remaining, toss it back in. So I just like to come in a little container, a ladle, a spoon, whatever you got, just under the surface, and just try to get as much of that fat off as you can. Since we are gonna still be skimming this, I'm not super worried if I get a little bit of the liquid, because I know it's not gonna go to waste. I'm just trying to grab as much of that fat as I can. And it doesn't matter if you're perfect. I usually assume I leave about a tablespoon of oil behind, and then I just count that into my macros. That's looking pretty good to me. So this is gonna go in the freezer. You can see there's a nice thick layer of fat on top. That's gonna solidify, be super easy to separate. The rest of this is just gonna go on the back burner to stay warm while we get everything else prepared. All right, now it's time for some knife work. Dice up our onions, celery, carrots, and throw those in the same bowl together. And then we're gonna mince up a whole head of garlic and some lemongrass. All right, time for our final few steps. To our pot, we're gonna heat it up. We're gonna go in with our olive oil and toss in our mirepoix to start sauteing. I like to use a pinch of salt to dry out some extra moisture from these veggies. All right, we're not gonna cook these veggies for too long because they're gonna simmer in the sauce, so we don't want them to become too soggy. Now I'm gonna add the wild rice. I'm gonna let this toast up just a little bit to add even more depth of flavor. All right, this has been toasting for a minute or two. We're gonna go in with our garlic and lemongrass. I'm only gonna give this about 30 to 45 seconds. I don't want anything to burn. I just wanna wake up the flavors. Once this starts smelling like heaven, go in with your chicken stock. Now, if you kept this warm, you should be able to get this going and cook with minimal downtime. Now, I'm just gonna give this a nice mix, get anything off the walls. It's at this point that I'm gonna add back in our chicken. Now, I haven't done anything to this. I'm counting on all the flavors in the stock to come through and season our chicken, and we'll make sure the salt's good at the end. And we're gonna cover and simmer on low. Stirring occasionally and adding more water if it starts to dry out. All right, once the rice is all cooked, I'm gonna make sure the salt's where I want it to be and hit it with a good bit of fresh cracked black pepper. And now it's time to eat. Today, I have a special guest to help me taste, my beautiful girlfriend.
It's really good. Lots of flavor. I would eat it every day.
Don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe. Let me know how you like the recipe and if you have any questions. See you next time.